It's been one more of a busy day for President Donald Trump. He was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize today. We broke that story earlier this morning. Meanwhile, a megachurch pastor, Darrell Scott, sat down with him. Get this, folks. He said that the Chicago gangs contacted him. They promised to murder less if Trump would come to the table, that they actually respect him. I cannot make this up. We have a video clip. Take a look.
At a White House Black History Month breakfast, a black minister from Cleveland who was on President Trump's transition team put Chicago crime back in the spotlight.
I was recently contacted by some of the top gang thugs in Chicago for a sit-down. They reached out to me because they associated me with you. They respect you. They believe in what you're doing. And they want to have a sit-down about lowering that body count.
It's a great idea because Chicago is totally out of control.
I'm joined in studio now by Millie Weaver. And Millie, we know that Chicago former community organizer, President Barack Obama, this seemed like a swipe at him because he did so much work on the ground to make sure that the Chicago gangs weren't murdering as much. Now they finally have a president that they respect. They reach out to this mega pastor to be able to come to the table for once and say, we want social programs. We're going to stop our killing. Yeah. If you give it to us, what do you make of this?
It's absolutely absurd. I mean, it's pretty crazy that, you know, they would even be trying to barter. You know, we'll cut our body count down. Right. We'll cut our numbers down on killing as long as you let us keep our social programs. Now, it also begs the question, you know, were they using these social programs to launder drug money through that? Because that tends to be the case with organized crime and these type of gangs. So it's just really crazy to see that they would be bartering
Something
this way.
That really struck me. So Pastor Scott, he actually said, this is coming directly from the gangs of Chicago. We didn't respect the former president. We actually respect you. That was a direct quote from this. And I'm just going to read, he's a black Trump supporter. He was contacted by some of the top gang thugs in Chicago for a sit down. And he's saying, look, they told me out of their mouths themselves, we didn't believe in the prior administration. We believe in you. It looks like Trump, you know, the 12th day of office here, he's already bringing the Chicago murder rate down. No thanks to Rahm Emanuel, by the way, who has nothing to do with this. And we saw him buck up against Trump. I know you and I talked about this off camera. The sanctuary city aspect of Chicago, we've seen, you know, Austin, where we live, they're saying, you know what, we're going to hold our guns. We're going to house every illegal that we can possibly handle, regardless of what you say. We don't care what crimes they commit. And, you know, this is really taking a turn, Millie. It's
exactly.
It's shocking a little bit.
It could be why Donald Trump is deciding to focus his attentions on Chicago is because he's seeing a spark of a rebellion. And it's been a problem in Chicago that you've seen this organized crime element. And yes, Rahm Emanuel is going out of his way to say, no, we're going to keep it a sanctuary city, and as well as the city council, and they did vote on that. Now, as far as, you know, having the federal government come in, that might be what's necessary in order to get rid of the crime element. I mean, they're trying to barter with him, but I really don't see Donald Trump, you know, giving them much leeway. He could be just doing this, making it seem like he's going to barter with them so that they come out and expose their criminal nature. I don't think
you think
he's
not going to actually negotiate with the thugs.
I really don't.
Well, I mean, you know what? Anybody that wants to come to the negotiating table, you know, I really commend them for that. You know, thank God they're going to murder less, and no less in Chicago, and the thuggery going on in Chicago. You know, the gangs are the least of it. We cover this time and again on Infowars, and really, it's the mayoral process. It's their mayor, and frankly, he could. You know, the Godfather. He took one up from the Godfather. He is the Godfather, in my opinion, of Chicago in terms of his lack of ability to reduce violent crime and being a part of it, frankly. But this is a good sign. I want to take us now. So you put in some stories. We've had some really controversial headlines. We were talking about this off camera for just a moment. I know that we're gonna transition now a little bit. So Millie has been covering and kind of following this latest trend. And
yes, so we saw with the Women's March in D.C. just recently.
You were there,
yes,
right?
I was there, and it was absolutely mind-blowing to see women out there, these women who are proclaiming themselves to be feminists out there saying that, you know, a woman in a hijab is a symbol for woman empowerment and promoting Sharia law. We even saw women singing, you know, Allah Akbar. It was pretty insane. And at the same time, you have to also remember and take notice, because it's very important, that women under Sharia law are extremely oppressed, and it is absolutely the reverse of woman empowerment. It's actually woman oppression. And so I just find it, really crazy that we're going to be, we were going to be allowing in these Muslims from other countries where, we could have potential ISIS members coming through. And then we have, this raw Emmanuel saying, no, we're going to go ahead and let this be a sanctuary city regardless. My question to you, Margaret, may be, what type of cultural clash do you see this as, even the fact that we already have a lot of these people in our country?
Well, I think that with Rahm Emanuel specifically, it doesn't matter, as long as he's in disobedient defiance to a presidential order, there seems to be almost like a demonic energy where there's an utter confusion surrounding what is oppression and what isn't. And we cover this really frequently on Infowars. And regardless of your religious affiliation or belief, there's something called radical Islam, which is a cancer. And it's really tried to grip our society. And we cover that frequently. I know you've covered that. With the Women's March, something that I found really interesting. So we see these women that are feminazis that really hate society, they hate societal norms, they hate men, frankly, and they align with Sharia law. So they have this belief system that is really oppressive to begin with, and they're aligning with a fellow demonic oppression. In my opinion, from what I've seen as a reporter, it's really interesting because you would think that the irony of this, that the feminist women's movement is supposed to free women, and yet it chains them with these lies and these ridiculous beliefs that somehow radical Islam is going to free you, when in fact, and Joe Biggs did a report, I was watching it earlier, where you see women adding Sharia law to our Constitution. The utter confusion and the darkness on the earth is really astounding to me, because they're polar opposites, people. We love liberty, we love freedom, we love the truth, and we're talking about something that's very oppressive, specifically when it comes to women. And I know that in regards to Sharia law, you and I were talking about this. Sharia law is very oppressive. We're going through the steps. You can't vote, you can't drive, you don't have any rights. You can get your head cut off. Your husband can do whatever he wants to you, including pedophilia. You have no, very specific things going on here. That,
and women that are raped in Muslim countries,
you're held accountable.
They get in trouble. If they cannot prove it, they get in trouble for adultery, and some of them get punished,
stoned or beheaded.
It's pretty intense, and they have to have 3 male witnesses to come out and say that they saw it happen. Otherwise, they won't report it because fear of basically admitting adultery, and that's a death sentence to a woman in those nations. So it's pretty bizarre to see, like we've seen in the European nations where they've been bringing in a lot of these refugees, the clash that's been happening because they're not used to seeing women in anything but a black sheet, And these aren't, as much as we want to talk about religious rights, which I firmly do believe in religious rights, and I think that religious freedom should be protected.
We love liberty. We love I don't care what you are. We love liberty. Just don't shove it down our throats, and don't try to make it our own law that we all follow.
Exactly.
That's fine with me.
The problem is when humanitarian issues kind of get in the way. We can't have like a satanic religion that's going to go out and, kill people or something, because that would be violating other people's rights, and it would be violating human rights. So that's basically the way I feel on Sharia law is, a lot of these things that, they say against women and against homosexuals, those things would be breaking the law here. And that's a major problem with having such an influx coming into the country of people that have such a different culture.
We could talk about this all day. That's going to do it for us for tonight. Be sure to check us out tomorrow. I think it's Leanne McAdoo hosting the Infowars Nightly News. I'm Margaret Howell reporting with Millie Weaver.
In case you haven't heard, Infowars has become the most influential media outlet in America. We're making freedom go viral. And now we are proud to announce a new weapon in the epic battle against the globalists. Infowars Prime, where you can watch live high-definition feeds of The Alex Jones Show, plus exclusive insider videos from the Infowars crew and behind-the-scenes action. Go to Infowars.com/app and download today. today. Infowars Prime is available right now for your iPhone or Android. You will have access to exclusive videos that you can't see anywhere else. And that means live coverage of events and breaking news on location as it happens. You can also take advantage of amazing deals from the Infowars store that are only available for Infowars Prime subscribers. That's Infowars Prime at Infowars.com/app. And if you can hear my voice, you are the resistance.